Why is it that more often than not, gratitude journals don't really work? And how can we shift our state towards gratitude? Welcome to the Bold Perspectives podcast. I'm your host, Archie Del Rey, and today's episode is a deep dive on gratitude. So we're going to define what is gratitude and discuss briefly why cultivating gratitude can be such a game changer. And then we will look at some common exercises like gratitude journaling and what are the benefits, but what are also the limits of those and why. And most importantly, we will look at the most common pitfall when it comes to embodying gratitude. And at the end, I will give you 2 simple exercises that you can do to complement your journaling in order to really in order for you to really understand the mechanics of what is gratitude, how does it work, how can you pave the road and make it easy for yourself to be in a state of gratitude as much as you can. Because the problem is we often feel like we can force gratitude, we can bring it about, while actually gratitude is not something that you can follow step 1, 2, 3 and get into it, because gratitude in itself is a state. It's not an emotion. It is not a feeling that builds up and runs through your system like sadness would, for example, or like joy. I would describe it as a state of humbleness and a state of abundance and a state of connection. It is a state where you are connected to the fact that the world is abundant and that you are indeed wealthy. And there is this deep humbleness, this deep gratitude for what you already have and who you already are. There is no longing there. There is no abandoning yourself. There is this deep rest in yourself. And this is not a state that you can actively bring about, but it is more a result of those waves that we go through as humans. And we will get into how you can make it easier for yourself to get into that state. But in general, I just want to say that it's a natural state for us, because our lives on this planet are abundant indeed when we allow ourselves to focus on that. And in those times when nothing is opposing that belief or that reality of abundance, then gratitude is a natural state. So from here, it's easy to understand why so many people claim that gratitude creates wealth and creates happiness, because we live in this universe or in this world that operates, among other things, by the law of attraction, which is in psychology sometimes called confirmation bias, which is like a simplification of it. It is that pattern of our brains that seek confirmation in the outside world for thoughts and beliefs that we hold. The mechanics of our universe go even beyond that, but even that would be already enough for a human being to want to cultivate internal beliefs of gratitude, because that would, even if not create more abundance in your life, it would at least make you focus on those things that you already have and that you already are, so that the abundance that is already there. So it's easy to see that cultivating gratitude does indeed create wealth and happiness, because where you focus is where your energy goes. And where your energy goes is going to sooner or later be growing. So then what usually people would advise you to do is to have a gratitude journal. or to have gratitude talks, or to go on a walk or take it into your daily meditation or whatever you do, to focus your thoughts on gratitude, to literally just list things that you are grateful for. And if it's hard to have big things there on your list, then you focus on the easier, the smaller things, like today I have an ability to breathe, and I have 2 legs that I can use to walk, and I'm really grateful for the sunshine or the green grass or whatever it is. So it's essentially a focus exercise, and focus exercises are amazing. They have their benefits because our mind tends to go on spirals and tends to create more of the same. So if you start with a negative thought, your mind tends to attract more negative thoughts. If your mind is tensing up about something, then it tends to create more tension and attract more tension. On the other hand, if you focus on something positive, then your mind tends to bring about more positive things. But this is only one side of the coin. And on some level, we all know that you cannot fully trust these exercises, because it cannot be just as simple as, okay, you just think positively and then your whole life changes and suddenly you wake up having $1 million on your account and having the most, like perfect everything, perfect relationships in your life and perfect health and all that. If it was that easy, then we would have like a culture of gratitude journalers and we would all be super healthy and wealthy. So the focusing, like the positively, actively bringing about gratitude, focusing on gratitude, is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, like with a lot of these things that are not a mechanical result, but a result of a process. So gratitude, as I said before, is a result of a process. So what's the process? Well, there is opposing forces to everything. There is obviously beliefs and thoughts and emotions that are telling you a different story. So sometimes when I go on a gratitude walk and I start focusing my thoughts on, I'm so grateful for the life that I have, then I already feel there is something in me that goes, what do you mean grateful? How can you be grateful? Look at this, you did not hit your numbers, and look at that argument that you had, and look at how that customer treated you yesterday, and look at this, look at that. So there's like a part of me that has a different agenda, that wants me to focus on the calamities, that wants me to focus on the negative things, those things that are not working. And that's sensible. I mean, this is how my brain is designed. It's designed to focus on the problems so I can solve them. It's generally a good thing, but you see the problem, right? So we get this internal split. We have the conscious part that wants to do the gratitude journal or whatever, that wants to focus on gratitude, that wants to be in the state of gratitude as much as we can. And then there's this other part of me that is opposing gratitude and that wants me to focus on all the things that I'm not grateful for because they are not going the way I want them to. And here is what most people get wrong, and that is that the game is somehow about outweighing that negative side. That if you do enough gratitude journaling, then at some point the pessimist inside of you will shut up. And this is what we call bulldozing. It might look like self-love because you focus on the positive things, but it is actually a sort of toxic positivity exercise that you do with yourself, because you are bulldozing that part of you that is not on board with the gratitude exercise. There is a part of you that is serious. It is not just being, annoyingly negative, but it is serious about those issues. Hey, you should not be grateful for how that customer treated you yesterday, or how your partner treated you this morning, or how the weather has been like gray for months and you're starting to become depressed because you haven't seen sunshine for so long. Like whatever it is, these issues are not there to be ignored. So what's the key here? Let's dive one layer deeper, because there is conditioning involved in all that. The easy way out, or so it seems, would be to say, okay, I have these two parts in me, and obviously it's not about bulldozing that negative part, so let's try to get them on board somehow. But the problem is there is one more layer to go, and that is our tendency to equate gratitude with conformity. Let me explain. I don't know how you were brought up, but chances are, if you're like me, then you are brought up having parents that want you to be grateful, but not because gratitude is such an amazing frequency to be in, but because somebody who is grateful is seen as nice and behaving member of society. So you were most probably taught to say the quote-unquote magic word as a kid, and you probably had those moments where you were angry and pissed and just not happy, and at the same time your parents or grandparents or whoever adults would demand that gratitude expression from you, like you would receive something and it's not what you wanted, and then you'd be and then your parents would be like, don't be so, like, be grateful, say thank you, say the magic word. So this seems a bit silly on like the first glance, but what does that do to the child's relationship to gratitude? It puts the expression of gratitude, the words thank you, in the same drawer right next to oppression, being pressured from your caretakers to conform to a certain behavior. And that lies heavy on our shoulders, that kind of normative, that drive to be grateful in order to conform. Even if we consciously don't think that way anymore, because we are adults, right? There might still be remnants of that almost shame or guilt, that feeling that you should, that internal should of being grateful. So the key here is to shift the attitude completely. To say, okay, I understand what my parents wanted me to do. They wanted me to be an honorable member of society, so they wanted to prepare me for the expectations of others, and they wanted me to conform to the gratitude rules. And even though this is well meant, and even though this was probably hurtful, because in those moments I was basically abandoned and not taken seriously as a kid with my whatever resistances or angers or disappointments that I had. Despite all that, this whole story has nothing to do with gratitude. This has everything to do with conformity, this has everything to do with emotional abandonment, but it has nothing to do with gratitude. So, looking at these moments and remembering that, and maybe even taking your time to grieve, to understand, wow, I was not actually taught to be grateful. Like, nobody showed me how to do that. all they taught me is to conform. Okay, how does that make me feel, And maybe some grieving and some maybe even being angry at your parents is very valid in this case. And then from that, we move on. And we ask the question, so if that is not gratitude, what is it then? And how can we work with these opposing forces inside of us and cultivate gratitude without bulldozing ourselves? So here are the two practices that I would suggest, and that has worked wonders for me and many others. And you can try them today. The first practice is what I call an affirmation mirror. We all know affirmations. We all know the temptation to make those affirmations into toxic positivity exercises. It's like you write down things that you want to affirm in your life. Sentences like, I am happy, I am grateful, I am wealthy, whatever it is. And if there is a part of you that is opposing that thought, that is not believing that thought, that is answering you with, who are you kidding, when you write, I am wealthy, that thought that goes like, you have nothing on your bank account, there is no reason to write, I am wealthy, right? So what we do here with the affirmation mirror is we start with the same outcome in mind, but we use the affirmations not to suggest something into our subconscious and to train us to believe that thing that we write down, but we use it as a mirror. So if you do your gratitude journal, use it as a mirror first to listen and to give some space to those opposing forces. Because the opposite of bulldozing, those parts of you that are non-believers, is to actually give them space, to actually listen to them, and to offer some loving presence to them. So how do you do that? You start your gratitude journal. You write down, I'm so grateful for this and that. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for today. And you let part of your attention be with your body, with your emotions, with your thoughts, with images in your head. What comes up when you write these things down? What do those voices say? Do they say things like, I feel let down by my parents. I feel abandoned by society. I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed. Whatever it is that in that moment when you try to focus on gratitude, that in that moment is opposing and saying, no, I have an internal contradiction here. And then, and here's the second part of the exercise, or the second exercise, is whenever you notice that there is something that keeps coming, whenever you notice, the reason that I cannot focus on gratitude right now is because part of me feels stressed and overwhelmed. It feels overstimulated. It feels like it has no space. It has no way of creative expression because there's so much that needs to be done and everything is urgent. And I'm just giving you an example here. Whenever you notice what that voice is trying to tell you, then you're going to take it for a walk. And this is basically a grieving exercise. This is basically an exercise of being present with yourself. Because imagine, what would you do if a friend calls you up on your phone and says, hey, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, there is so much to do, but I just cannot keep up with that pace, and I'm overstimulated and I don't know what to do. What do? You do not suggest they focus on gratitude. You do not give them advice in their face. You do not try to ignore or talk themselves out of it. What you do is you tell them, hey, let's go on a walk. Let's get some fresh air. Let's move this. Because it's about moving it. It's about being present with it. That is what transforms these feelings and beliefs. It's one exercise. There's a million other exercises that you can do. I suggest a very simple one. You sit down, you write your journal, you notice the opposing voices, and then you take that voice on a walk. Generally, it's good to have no expectations towards them. You don't need that voice to change. You don't need that voice to heal as soon as possible. You let go of any outcome, and especially you let go of how long it takes for them to calm down and heal and to integrate. But having said that, what I often do is, if I go on a walk, for example, along a river, there will be a midpoint in my walk. So there will be like the first part, walking, until the big oak tree and the bench, and then I will turn around and go back. So you can use that midpoint as a turning point internally for your thoughts. So you just offer yourself a turning point. That means that in the first half, you just listen to your thoughts. You just allow them. You don't try to fix anything. You just like as you would with your friend, you just let them talk. You just let them be. Let them vomit everything that has been on their, on their heart, basically pressuring themselves. You just allow that to be. So you walk there and you'd be like, oh my God, there's so much pressure and there's so much this and there's so much that. And then at the middle point, you just allow yourself to make some shift. Again, do not expect anything big to happen. Do not put pressure on yourself to not having so much pressure, but just offer the possibility of change and be like, okay, I'm going to turn around now. I'm going to walk back now. And I've heard myself talking about all the pressure and the overwhelm, but maybe. And what's the maybe? And you take that on a walk. You take the maybe, you take the question, the curiosity of that moment on your way back. And you see what comes up. Maybe nothing comes, and that's okay. Then at least you spent time with yourself and you did not bulldoze yourself. You offered yourself some self-love. But more often than not, I notice that there is some part tends to calm down and tends to be like, you know what, if I'm really honest, I do trust myself that this will change because I know what happened here and I know what I learned from this. So actually, the next time around, it will be different. Maybe it will be not way different, but it will be a little bit different. Quite often you can watch how these positive attitudes emerge by themselves. This is the power of that exercise. When you leave that space, when you open a meadow of possibilities, then suddenly you can watch sprouts of hope coming up. And this is the attitude that I want you to have towards gratitude, because literally gratitude is not the result of step 1 to 3, but it's a result of an internal process of grieving and integrating those parts that are opposing gratitude. So going towards gratitude directly is one thing. You can do that with gratitude journaling. But the other way that I offer here is to go to gratitude indirectly by inviting it to come to you and by looking at those parts of you that are opposing gratitude and that are not in alignment, and just be with them and offer them unconditional presence and see what they need. Quite often you would see needs emerge out of that you didn't even know you have. And then you realize that when you can address those, then you can integrate those parts, and then they don't have to scream anymore. They don't have to oppose gratitude anymore because their needs have been met. I very much hope that that was helpful for you. Feel free to leave any comments or questions, and I wish you all the best. This was Archie Del Rey with Bold Perspectives podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode, and take care.